My daughter-in-law swapped out my asthma inhaler. That night, I collapsed right on the kitchen floor, my lungs feeling like they were being crushed. I only managed to hear my son call 911, the sirens tearing through the night, and then everything blurred under the ambulance lights. At the hospital, the doctor looked straight at me and said one sentence that froze the whole room. "Someone has tampered with your medication. This is an attempted murder." I turned and saw Brielle, my daughter-in-law, go pale just as two police officers walked in. My name is Jack Mercer, 68 years old. I used to think old age was just about back pain and shortness of breath, until I understood someone wanted me gone. Have you ever realized the most dangerous person is living right in your own home? And where are you watching from? And what time is it right now? I woke up to the steady beep of the heart monitor and the smell of disinfectant. An oxygen mask covered my face. I tried to take a deep breath, but my lungs still felt heavy. "Can you hear me, Mr. Mercer?" I shifted my eyes. The night doctor stood beside the bed, name tag reading Dr. Patel. "Jack," I rasped. "Where am I?" "WakeMed. You just went through severe respiratory failure. If the ambulance had arrived 10 minutes later..." She stopped. I understood the rest. The door flew open. Ethan rushed in, his jacket still wet with rain, eyes red from being up all night. He grabbed my hand and squeezed hard. "Dad, are you okay?" "I'm still here," I said, forcing the words out. Behind him, Bree walked in. My daughter-in-law. Her polite smile looked molded in place, but her eyes flicked over me too quickly. "Thank God," Bree said. "I was so scared." In my mind, there was only one image. The inhaler tonight. Its label crooked, the actuator stiff. A strange smell. Dr. Patel asked directly, "Did you bring your medication? The inhaler, prescriptions, anything?" Ethan hesitated. I didn't have time to grab it." "I did," Bree said quickly, holding up a plastic bag. "I got it from the bathroom so the doctor can check." My heart jolted. "Bree, where's my inhaler?" She thrust the bag forward, too fast. "In here, I left everything as it was." Dr. Patel took the bag and pulled out the blue inhaler. She turned it under the light, her finger stopping at the seal around the cap. A thin scratch, like someone had pried it up and pressed it back down. "Did you use this tonight?" she asked. I think so." "Did you notice anything unusual?" I inhaled. It smelled different. It didn't open my lungs. It locked up. Dr. Patel set the inhaler on the stainless tray. "This doesn't look like a typical asthma flare. The results suggest your airway was severely irritated, consistent with inhaling something that wasn't supposed to be there." Ethan went pale. "What do you mean, doctor?" Her voice dropped. "Someone tampered with your medication. This wasn't an accident. Based on what we're seeing, this was an intentional act that put your life in danger." Bree froze behind Ethan. Her smile vanished. Her lips turned white. "Doctor, don't speculate," Bree snapped. "He's older. He gets confused. Maybe he used the wrong inhaler." I looked straight at her. "I didn't use the wrong inhaler in my own home." Dr. Patel turned to the nurse. "Seal it as evidence. Log the time. The person who provided it. The person who received it. I'm filing a mandatory report." The door opened again. Two police officers stepped in, one in uniform, one in a black jacket with detective on it. "I'm Detective Alvarez," the man in the black jacket said. "Mr. Mercer, we need to ask a few questions. Who lives with you? Who has access to your home? And who could have touched your medication?" Ethan opened his mouth, then stopped. I spoke first, weak but clear. "My daughter-in-law often helps tidy up. She's the one who touches the medicine cabinet." Bree let out a dry laugh. "That's ridiculous. I'm just taking care of the family." Detective Alvarez didn't change his expression. "Taking care of someone doesn't mean altering their medication. What's your name?" "Brielle Hart Mercer," she answered. "You'll stay to give a statement," he said. "I need your phone number, address, and your schedule tonight." Detective Alvarez wrote, "Where do you keep the inhaler?" "In the bathroom cabinet," I said. "I keep it in one spot." He looked at Bree. "Do you have a key?" Bree swallowed. "I live there. Tonight." "Who went into the bathroom after he did?" Bree opened her mouth, then closed it. Ethan cut in. "Bree always rearranges everything. She says the house needs to be as tidy as a hotel." Detective Alvarez looked up. "Then you had the most opportunity." Bree glanced at Ethan, eyes pleading. Ethan looked at me, then at her. I could see my son trapped, but I also saw something new. A crack of doubt. And, in that crack, I understood the most terrifying thing of all. From this moment on, if I stayed silent, I might not get another chance to speak. When the police stepped into the hospital room and Dr. Patel ordered the inhaler sealed as evidence, I finally saw the shameful truth clearly. I had let everything slide too far. Ethan sat beside my bed, his hand still gripping mine like he was afraid that if he let go, I would disappear. And Bree stood at the end of the room, back straight, chin slightly raised, the posture of someone used to controlling the air in a space. She wasn't playing the worried daughter-in-law anymore. Instead, there was something cold and calculating, like she was asking herself, what proof do they have? Detective Alvarez asked a few more questions. Tonight's timeline, who called 911, who grabbed the inhaler and brought it in. Bree answered smoothly, too smoothly. She remembered every small detail, as if she had rehearsed. I looked at the tubes in my arm, then at the inhaler lying inside the sealed bag. Anger came late, but when it arrived, it didn't explode. It settled like a cold block of metal in my chest. I didn't need to look at Bree anymore to know this. It didn't start at the hospital. It started the day I opened my front door and let them walk in. To understand how a 68-year-old man could be pushed to the point of lying here, breathing through oxygen, and facing an attempted murder by medication, I had to go back 2 years, to an early fall afternoon in Cary, North Carolina, when the leaves were starting to yellow and I still believed family was the safest place. That day, I was standing on the porch fixing my wife's wooden chair, Linda's. She'd been gone 7 years, but I still kept the habit of wiping down the porch every morning, as if she might step out with a cup of coffee and tell me I was kicking dust into her eyes. I lived alone in the 3-bedroom house, mortgage paid off long ago, quiet enough that I could hear the wall clock ticking each beat clearly. I heard a car stop in the driveway. Ethan got out first, thinner than I remembered, shoulders heavy. Then a woman stepped out from the passenger side, dyed blonde hair, neat, an expensive coat, but spotless sneakers. She looked at my house for 1 second, so fast an outsider wouldn't notice, but I'd worked construction. I knew what a property appraisal look was. "Dad," Ethan said, forcing brightness into his voice. "This is Brielle. Bree." Bree smiled. "I've heard Ethan talk about you so much. Finally meeting you." I shook her hand. Her hand was cool and dry, like the hand of someone who never washes dishes. But the smile was perfect. The kind of perfect that makes other people feel rough if they don't mirror it. Ethan pulled me aside, speaking low like he was afraid Bree would hear. "Dad, we need to stay here for a while. Just a few months. Rent went up. We're trying to save for a deposit on an apartment. I know it's inconvenient, but just a few months." I looked at my son and saw the thing I hated most in his eyes, shame. Ethan wasn't the type to take advantage. He was just the type who gets backed into a corner and then chooses silence to avoid a fight. And I was his father. I had promised Linda before she closed her eyes that I would keep Ethan okay. I said, "All right, come inside." Bree walked in first without waiting to be invited. "Oh, wow," she said, looking around like she was touring a model home. "This place has potential." That word, it's potential, and sounded like a compliment, but underneath it was another sentence. It needs to be changed to fit me. In the first days, Bree performed beautifully. She cooked dinner, told me I kept the house clean, called me dad in front of Ethan. She even bought a store-bought apple pie and said, "So the house feels like family." Ethan relaxed, seeing me and his wife getting along. But by the second week, the small things started disappearing. First, it was the cardboard box Linda had kept with old wedding cards and photos. I kept it on the cabinet shelf, right under our wedding picture. One afternoon, I came home and the box was gone. Bree said softly, "I put it in storage so it's not cluttered. Dad doesn't need to stare at sad things all the time." Then it was Linda's favorite ceramic cups. Bree moved them around, saying it was for consistency. I went looking for the filing cabinet key, the drawer with the house papers, insurance, retirement documents, and it wasn't where it used to be. Bree smiled. "Dad forgets things. I'll hold it for you, for safety." Hold it for you. From that day on, I heard that phrase every day. Hold it for you. Organize it for you. Handle it for you. Remind you. And Ethan saw it all as small adjustments, because every night he came home exhausted and only wanted peace. He didn't see that those small things were assembling into a cage. That night, after dinner, I walked into the bathroom and opened the medicine cabinet to check my inhaler, like I always did. I was fine, but my asthma was always lurking. I wanted to be sure it was in the right place. The inhaler was there, but it was turned slightly off angle, like it had just been set down in a hurry. I stood still for a long time staring at it, then closed the cabinet. I didn't say anything. I told myself maybe I'm being paranoid. Maybe Bree was just cleaning. But deep inside me, I'd already heard a very small click, like a lock starting to close from the outside. And I didn't know that from that moment on, what Bree was aiming for wasn't just bedrooms or money. What she was aiming for was control over the only thing that kept me alive, my breath. The next morning, I stood in the kitchen watching the wall clock tick one beat at a time. Ethan had left for work at 5:45 like always. Bree was upstairs. The house was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming softly. I didn't want to believe I was being paranoid. I'm a man who worked as an electrical contractor for more than 30 years. I'm used to measuring what's real: current, wiring, joints, screws. But the most dangerous things can't be measured with the naked eye. They're measured by the feeling of having your control taken away. I walked into the bathroom, opened the medicine cabinet. The inhaler was still there, but this time I looked closer, not the quick glance of someone trying to reassure himself. I set it in my palm and turned it under the light. The seal around the cap had a thin line, like a fingernail had pried at it. The barcode sticker was shifted by 0.5 millimeter, the kind of shift that only happens when someone peels it off and sticks it back on, rushed, convinced no one will notice. I set the inhaler down. My heart beat slow and heavy. I opened the drawer under the sink. Cold medicine, bandages, ointment. Then a small zipper bag. Not mine. Inside were a few clear sealing stickers, the kind used to tamper seal, and a small pair of pliers. I went still. I didn't dare jump to a conclusion right then. But I understood one thing. Bree had prepared to open and close something again without leaving a trace. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Bree appeared in a fitted t-shirt, hair pinned up neatly, a coffee mug in her hand like she was the actual homeowner. "Dad, you're up early," she said, voice sweet. I was going to make breakfast. I slid the zipper bag back into the same spot, closed the drawer like I'd never opened it. I turned, acting calm. "Yeah, I'm just checking my meds." Bree gave a soft laugh. "Oh, Dad worries too much. Just let me manage the medicines. I have a checklist. Older people forget things." Older people. The phrase landed like a velvet-wrapped hammer. Not a hard hit, but it makes you doubt yourself. "I don't forget," I said. Bree shrugged and walked to the kitchen cabinet. I watched her and noticed something else. She'd labeled the shelves. Bree's pantry, Ethan's snacks, Dad's stuff on the very lowest corner. My things were placed lowest, like an afterthought. "I'm reorganizing," she said without me asking. "The house has to run efficiently. Ethan needs to rest when he gets home from work. Dad's at home, so you're more flexible." I heard the real meaning. You matter less than we do. All that week, I started counting the small things. The things I used to ignore because I didn't want to be called difficult. Everything that belonged to Linda, keepsakes, photos, the hand-woven blanket, got moved up to the attic. Bree said, "So Dad won't be sad." But really, it was to erase the trace of the woman who had once stood beside me in this house. My home insurance folder and my retirement papers disappeared from the drawer. When I asked, Bree said casually, "I'm holding them for you. Important paperwork needs someone organized to keep it." I asked Ethan that night, while Bree was in the shower, "Do you know Bree is holding my papers?" Ethan exhaled, eyes still on his phone. "Dad, Bree's just helping. Don't turn everything into a war." "I'm not turning anything," I said slowly. "I just want to know where my papers are." "I'll talk to Bree," Ethan said, but his voice wasn't steady. He was afraid of arguing, afraid of breaking the peace, and Bree leaned on that fear to pull the whole house toward her. By Sunday, I spoke to the only person left who still looked at me like I was who I'd always been, my neighbor. Her name was Donna Whitaker, in her 60s, across the street, the kind of person who always knows when a strange car sits too long in someone's driveway. I was dragging the trash bin out when she called, "Jack, are you all right?" I forced a smile. "I'm fine." Donna stared straight at me. No small talk. "I'm asking for real. Since Ethan moved back in, you've been on your porch less. And that girl, Bree, she looks at your house like it's an item in a store." I stopped. Donna lowered her voice. "Last week, I saw her out in the yard taking pictures of your windows, the corners of the house, even your mailbox. When I asked, she said for Pinterest. But I saw her take a picture of your license plate, too." My blood went cold. "My plate?" Donna nodded. Then 2 nights ago, a black SUV parked in front of your place for 10 minutes. She went out and talked to someone. I didn't hear much, just caught her saying the words paperwork and timeline. I don't want to gossip, but you watch yourself. I thanked Donna, rolled my trash bin back in, and my hands shook a little. Paperwork, timeline. Those aren't words people use when they're talking about family. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in my room, listening to Bree's laughter downstairs, listening to Ethan say, "Yeah," like a machine, listening to a fake peace settle over the house. Around 1:10 a.m., I heard the bathroom door open, light footsteps, then the soft click of the medicine cabinet. I sat up fast, my heart pounding. I didn't burst out like in a movie. I just moved quietly to my bedroom door and looked through the crack into the hall. A figure, hair pinned up, Bree. She stood at the cabinet longer than someone grabbing toothpaste. Then she closed it and went back to her room. I stood there like I'd been nailed in place. The next morning, I checked the inhaler. The label was a little more crooked, and the smell, like it had been test sprayed. I didn't yell. I didn't confront her. I did what I taught Ethan when he was learning to drive. Don't slam the brakes in the middle of the highway because you're scared. Hold the wheel. I grabbed my phone and photographed the seal, the label, the lot number. I put the inhaler into a separate zip bag and hid it inside my toolbox in the garage, the one place Bree never touched because it was dirty. Then I took an old backup inhaler from Linda's drawer, recently expired but still usable for a little, and placed it in the medicine cabinet as bait. I needed to know what she would do next. And, standing in the garage with the smell of motor oil and old wood around me, I realized a truth that left my throat dry. Bree wasn't just organizing the house. She was testing my boundaries, beat by beat, object by object, breath by breath. And if I didn't act fast, the next test might be the last time I had enough air to call my son's name. I didn't tell Ethan at dinner, not because I was afraid of him, but because I'd seen how Bree operated. She turned every conversation into a courtroom where I was the confused old man, and she was the devoted caregiver. If I rushed into a confrontation without anything in my hands, I would lose on my own turf. I chose deliberate silence. Monday morning, I waited for Ethan to leave for work. Bree stayed home. She was always home, but she always had a reason to look busy. I went to the garage, opened my toolbox, took out the real inhaler I'd hidden, and looked again at the photos I'd taken. The pride seal, the shifted label, the lot number. Then I called the one person Bree couldn't laugh off and brush aside, my doctor. My clinic is in Raleigh, about 20 minutes from the house. I told the receptionist I needed an urgent appointment because my medication shows signs of tampering. That was enough to get me in early. Dr. Kim, my pulmonologist, was Korean, around 50, with a low voice and no patience for nonsense. He looked at the inhaler, looked at the photos, then looked straight at me. "You're sure someone else touched your medication?" "I'm sure. I saw her at the medicine cabinet at 1 in the morning." He nodded, no surprise, just turning serious as stone. "If you suspect it was altered, do not use it again. I'll issue a new one today, and I advise you to file a report. This is no longer a family matter." I heard the word advise, but his tone carried something else. If I didn't report it, I might not be alive to report the next time. I didn't go home right away. I drove straight to the bank, the branch where I receive my pension and pay my bills. I'm not the type who obsessively checks my balance, but after 3 weeks of worsening breathing and the signs in the medicine cabinet, I forced myself to look at the whole picture. The last month showed 2 charges I didn't recognize, one for home improvement consultation and one for document prep service. Not big, but enough to make my skin go cold. I asked the banker who had access to the account. I was the only account holder. But then came the thing that made me want to vomit. My contact information had been updated last week. An alternate email, an alternate phone number. Not mine. I signed a dispute form right there at the counter. I requested a lock-on changes. Alerts turned on. A security code placed on the account. The banker looked at me and lowered her voice. "Do you suspect someone is exploiting you? Because this looks like account takeover behavior." I didn't say Bree's name. Not yet. I just said, "I need to protect myself." Then I did the third thing that day, the most important thing. I called a lawyer, not a Hollywood lawyer, just someone who handled elder abuse and housing. Donna, my neighbor, had once helped a friend fight something similar. She gave me Janice Holloway's number. Janice's office was in a low building with a small sign, nothing flashy. But when she walked out to greet me, I understood immediately. This was someone who wasn't afraid to get dirty. Janice was about 45, hair pulled back tight, eyes like a scalpel. She let me talk for 10 minutes without interrupting. When I got to "the inhaler has pry marks" and the document prep transaction, she set her pen down. "Mr. Mercer, I'll be direct. This could be an attempt to control and strip your rights, your assets, and your life. We need to do two things in parallel: protect you immediately and build a record." "A record how?" "A binder," she said, pulling a thick folder from a cabinet and placing it in front of me like a weapon. "Dates, photos, bank statements, bills, texts, notes, everything. Don't argue with emotion. You win with paper." I swallowed. "But Bree lives in my house, Ethan too." Janice met my eyes. "Who holds title to the house?" "I do." "Then you have the right to change the locks, install cameras, and issue a notice to vacate if necessary. But do it smart. No yelling, no threats. Don't give them the chance to say you lost control." She handed me a list. "Switch medications immediately." I already had. "Photograph and seal any suspicious items. Pull your credit report and freeze it. Change passwords. Enable 2FA. Secure your banking email. If there are signs of forged documents, report to police and Adult Protective Services." I left Janice's office with a strange feeling. Not relief, but clarity. I'd been scared because I didn't know what to do. Now I had a path. That night, I came home like any other day. Bree was cooking healthy pasta and laughing with Ethan like there was no darkness in this house. I looked at my son, his eyes tired, still trying to keep the peace. Bree turned to me, voice sweet. "Dad, where were you all day?" "I was worried. Dad's health needs to be monitored." I nodded once. "Doctor's appointment." "Oh, what did the doctor say?" she asked, watching me too closely. "Fine," I said, and for the first time in 2 years, I didn't explain anything beyond that. Bree hesitated. She was used to me explaining, asking, oversharing. I wasn't doing it anymore. After midnight, I waited until they were asleep. I wasn't stalking anyone. I was following the plan. I brought the binder out to the garage table. I clipped in photos of the inhaler with pry marks, a copy of my appointment and the new prescription, a bank statement showing the suspicious charges, Donna's note, paperwork, and timeline. A timeline page I wrote in ink. The night I heard the cabinet click at 1:10 a.m. Then I did the last thing before turning off the light. I installed a small camera aimed at the bathroom hallway. Nothing obvious, just motion capture with timestamps. Not for revenge. To live. When I lay down, my asthma still lurked at the edge of my lungs, but this time I didn't feel like a man waiting to be attacked. I was building a fence out of paperwork, out of evidence, out of clarity. And in the dark, one cold thought moved through my mind. If Bree was willing to touch the one thing that lets me breathe, she wasn't going to stop at once. She would try again. And next time, I wouldn't just suspect. I would have proof. 3 days after I installed the camera, I started to realize something unsettling. When you build a fence, the intruder doesn't stop. They try to break through faster, before the fence gets tall enough. Thursday night, Bree made detox chicken soup and talked about money like it was the weather. "Dad, the bills are up this month," she said, eyes still on her phone. "Dad's medical stuff is a lot, too. Ethan and I are reworking the budget." I sat at the head of the table, trying to breathe slowly. My budget is my business. Bree looked up, smiling without her eyes. "I'm just worried. Older people get scammed, and paperwork gets messy. I'm helping Ethan get a few things ready so the house can be more stable." Stable. Another word that sounded gentle, until I learned to hear the sharp edge underneath. Ethan got home late. He ate fast, apologized for being exhausted, then went upstairs to shower. Bree followed, saying, "Let me rub your back." I watched them go, my heart turning cold. I went into the garage, opened the binder, and wrote one clean line. Thursday, 9:12 p.m. Bree mentions paperwork plus stabilize the house. Then I went to my bedroom, put my phone on vibrate, and waited. Not to catch her like a jealous husband. I waited because I knew if she dared to touch my breath, she would try again. And I needed time, place, and clear evidence. 1:07 a.m. My phone buzzed softly. Camera. Motion detected. Hallway watch bathroom. I sat up immediately. Dry throat, slow, heavy heartbeat. I didn't fling the door open. I did exactly what Janice told me. Don't confront. Record. I opened the app and watched live. Bree stepped out of the bedroom, hair down, barefoot. She glanced toward Ethan's room, making sure he was asleep. Then she went straight to the bathroom. The light clicked on. The medicine cabinet opened. I saw her hand reach in and pull out the bait inhaler I'd left behind, turning it as if checking it. Then she opened the drawer under the sink, the drawer where I'd seen the little zipper bag and the small pliers. She bent down and did something just out of the camera frame for a few seconds. Then she raised the inhaler and pressed it once into a paper towel. The motion was clinical, calm, no panic, no confusion. In the next moment, she rotated the inhaler in her hand like she was swapping something inside or changing a part and sealing it back. I didn't know exactly what technical steps she was taking, but I knew what mattered more. She was tampering, on purpose, with tools, with a routine. Bree closed the cabinet, turned off the light, and walked back to bed like nothing happened. I sat frozen listening to my own breathing. Every inhale mattered. I opened the binder and added 1:07 a.m. Bree at medicine cabinet. Tool drawer opened. Inhaler handled plus test spray. The next morning, I did something simple that decided everything. I took that inhaler, put it in a zip bag, sealed it with tape, wrote the date and time, and set it in a small box in the garage, beside the real inhaler I'd gotten from the clinic and kept in my jacket pocket at all times. I also sent the camera clip to Janice and to myself by email, so if my phone disappeared, I would still have a copy. By afternoon, Bree began round 2, building a story. "Dad's been forgetful lately," she told Ethan right in front of me, loud enough for me to hear. "Last night, I saw Dad digging in the medicine cabinet. I'm scared Dad's going to take the wrong meds." Ethan turned to me, worn down. "Dad, why were you up so late?" I looked at my son. This time I didn't rush to argue. I just said, "I didn't dig. I was asleep." Bree shrugged, performing the burdened caretaker. "I'm just worried. If something happens, people will ask why we didn't stop it." I understood. She was laying the foundation so that when I went down, she'd already have the line. He did it to himself. He got confused. He's old and forgetful. That night, I didn't eat much. I kept my breathing steady. I kept the real inhaler in my pocket like a talisman. And I put the bait inhaler back in its usual spot in the cabinet because I wanted everything to unfold the way she'd prepared it, but on terms I controlled. Around 11:40, my chest started to feel heavy. Not a sudden asthma flare, more like the air inside the house had been changed. I stood and walked to the kitchen for water. Bree was in the living room, pretending to watch TV. Ethan had gone upstairs early for an early shift. Bree glanced at me. "Drink warm water, Dad. Don't panic." I didn't answer. 11:53, the shortness of breath hit for real. It locked down fast. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, trying to inhale deep, but all I heard was a thin wheeze, like a pinched tube. I reached for the medicine cabinet, exactly the habit Bree wanted. The inhaler was there. I picked it up. The label was off. The valve was stiff. The smell was wrong, just like the night I collapsed. I stared at the kitchen floor. I knew. If I used it, I might not stand up again. But I also knew. If I didn't, I could drop from a real attack. That was the trap she'd built. Either choice could kill me. So I made a third choice, the one she didn't plan for. I pulled the real inhaler from my pocket, one hard draw. The air was still tight, but a small channel opened, enough for me to stagger into the living room and hit the big overhead light switch. Bree flinched. "What are you doing, Dad?" She sprang to her feet. I was breathing in broken pieces. "Call Ethan. He's asleep." "Call Ethan," I said, my voice raw and hard. Bree hesitated for exactly 1 second. 1 second where instinct showed. She didn't want a witness awake right now. But Ethan heard the noise. He ran downstairs, eyes half shut. "Dad?" I held up the inhaler in my hand. The real one. I didn't use the one in the cabinet. "Go get that one." Ethan rushed into the bathroom and came back with the bait inhaler. I pointed at it, breathing in ragged cuts. "Smell it." Ethan lifted it to his nose. His face shifted. Why does it smell weird?" Bree moved fast. "Oh my God, Dad's worked up again. Give it here, I'll check." "Don't touch it," Ethan said suddenly. His voice shook, but he'd just said the one sentence I needed. Bree went still, and in that exact moment, the asthma hit me again. Even with the real inhaler, my body had been irritated too long. I swayed. My knees gave. I went down on the kitchen floor. Ethan shouted, "911, Dad, breathe!" I heard Bree behind him, not crying, but a compressed, angry hiss. "Oh no, not now." Then the phone. Ethan reading the address. Footsteps. Panic. and the ambulance siren coming from far away like a straight line cutting through the night. Before everything dimmed, I saw Bree standing in the kitchen doorway, her hand clenched around her phone, her face drained white. Not because she was afraid I'd die, but because she was afraid her plan had slipped off beat. And as I fell into the blank space, I knew one thing for certain. Tonight wasn't just the night I went down. Tonight was the night the evidence came with me to the hospital, so it could walk in with the police. 3 days later, I sat on my porch in Raleigh with the new inhaler in my jacket pocket, and a strange feeling settled in. Silence wasn't fear anymore. It was control. Janice did everything exactly the way paper power is supposed to work. She filed emergency motions, a protective order, a no-contact order, and a request that Ethan separate from the home during the investigation so Bree couldn't drag him down with her. Adult Protective Services came out, photographed the medicine cabinet, collected the camera footage, and took a copy of the 1:07 a.m. video. The police sealed the bait inhaler and sent it to the county lab. The results came back. An irritant not listed in the medication was injected through the valve. There was no more misunderstanding. Bree was arrested in the parking lot of a motel when she came back to retrieve paperwork. Officer Ramirez called me. Her voice was calm. "Mr. Mercer, we have sufficient grounds to file charges." I didn't celebrate. I just exhaled, like my lungs had finally been given back to me. Ethan came to see me afterward, eyes red, hands shaking. "Dad, I'm sorry. I let her turn our home into her home." I didn't curse him out. I put my hand on his shoulder. "You can't fix 3 years, but you can fix today. Start with the truth." He nodded. The next day, he signed a lease on a small apartment and moved out on his own. For the first time in years, this house held only my breathing. The court ordered that Bree could not come near me or my property. The criminal case proceeded separately: medication tampering, endangering a life, and elder abuse. Janice told me one sentence I underlined in my binder: "Don't win loud, win clean." So I did exactly that. Changed the locks, installed exterior cameras, froze my credit, and shifted all support to Pay Direct. My health came back faster than I expected, not because of some miracle drug, but because the poison had left the house. I slept in the master bedroom again. I made coffee at 6 o'clock a.m. without anyone telling me I was wasting money. I sat and breathed slowly, listened to the birds, and realized something simple. When you protect your breath, you protect your life. My lesson is straightforward. Silence won't save you. Evidence will. Don't try to win with words. Win with paperwork. I won with documents and with boundaries. And if someone touches your medication, that isn't saving money. It's control. If this story hit you, comment where you're watching from and what time it is right now. And if someone ever made you a guest in your own home, what did you do to take your right to live back?